Do you like psychics? I totally love psychics. Has someone you have cared deeply about died? What would you give for a chance to talk to them again? To ask them one final question? Well, I got good news for you. For the low price of $100, you can try to contact their loved one. Want the best chance for that conversation with the other side? Well, then the $850 deluxe package may be right for you. Offered to you by none other than the mystical magical saint himself, John Edward. But enough about that. We'll get to John Edward. But first, let's talk about psychics as a whole. The history of mediumship is heavily related to psychics and goes all the way back to early human history. It gained a special type of authority when, give me a moment, yes, right? Yes. People were being tortured and burned alive at the stake for being different. As you do. Despite that, mediumship became quite popular in the 19th century in the United States and the United Kingdom during the spiritualism religious movement. Everyone with a lost uncle, cat, dog, or Auntie Edna went looking for some form of closure, some psychic mediums. A last word with the loved ones, to voice the regrets, what have you. But it's not just normal people with a lot of pain who went looking for closure. Believe it or not, somehow these mediums turned a number of prominent scientists and otherwise intelligent people into suckers, such as chemist Robert Hare, physicist William Crookes, and evolutionary biologist Alfred Russel Wallace. The same people who investigated spiritualism and mediums became, so to speak, converts. I can only make an educated assumption as to why. Probably because a medium contacted Alfred's long-lost semi-adopted son Bruce Wayne. I kid. But most likely what happened was that they wanted to believe in it, being real, due to whatever emotional reason. Oftentimes when emotions are involved, logic and rational thought flies out of the window. It's just, you have to talk to your dead cousin Charles. Or as I said before, probably Auntie Edna. Possibly. At the start of the 19th century, mediums and psychics were often associated with witchcraft, demonic forces, so on and so forth. These often caused an interesting dynamic, where some of the population considered them evil, god-forsaken, or witches, or what have you, taking a more negative stance towards the entire concept. Whilst on the other hand, the other part of the population considered mediums and psychics respectable, powerful people who should be revered. Often, the practice of mediumship or psychic talents is associated with several religious belief systems, such as shamanism, voodoo, spiritualism, candomblé, voodoo, umbanda, and some new age groups. And if I mispronounce any of that, I'm sorry, I apologize. Okay, don't hang me for it. Not just yet. Of course, the belief in mysticism, psychics, mediums, ghosts, and all that has remained prevalent to this day, although there have always been people attempting to disprove or being skeptical towards the very concept. Even back then, a number of psychic mediums such as the Davenport brothers and the Banga sisters were exposed for using stage magic to trick people into believing into their mystical powers, which did result in mediumship falling to some disrepute. But it did not change the overall landscape of psychics, as there will always be plenty of people looking for closure out there. Now listen, I understand having regrets and wanting to have one final talk with a loved one. I do get how easy it is to fall for this. But paying $850 just to have a chance at talking to a loved one. A chance! Most people would consider paying $100 for a psychic reading a scam. But there are people who actually pay thousands upon thousands of dollars just to have someone give them incredibly vague and generalized information. It genuinely amazes me how psychics have been exposed time and time again with almost undeniable proof of their fraudulence, but people still insist on believing that it's all real. So much so that they simply turn a blind eye to all of the evidence and keep paying copious amounts of money for it until bankruptcy. My tangent aside, there are several prominent psychics that exist right now in the present day, as mentioned before. But the tricks they do to scam people, the way they approach psychic reading, is almost as ancient as the profession itself. To give you a better idea of the scams, let's go through some of the tricks of the trade, so to speak. I've been waiting for this. I'm so excited. Can you hear the excitement in my voice? Can you? See, every single psychic I'm going to name scams people in the exact same way, for a few exceptions. The most basic and easiest technique used by psychics is known as cold reading, which is making high probability guesses based on observations, capitalizing on connections and quickly moving on from failed guesses. Keep this in mind when you see the clips of this in action, as it will add a lot more depth to the viewing. Often, before starting the actual reading, the reader will typically try to elicit cooperation from the audience, saying something such as, "I have no control over this," or "sometimes it's all fuzzy, so with your help," and variations thereof. One of the most crucial elements of a convincing cold reading is a subject that's eager to make connections or reinterpret vague statements in any way that will help the reader appear to make specific predictions or intuitions. While the reader will do most of the talking, it is the subject who will provide the meaning. The most used technique in cold reading by almost every single psychic in the bloody universe is shotgunning. And no, that's not a reference to when somebody calls shotgun to sit on the passenger side seat. No, it's named after the manner in which a shotgun fires a cluster of small projectiles in the hope that one or more of them will strike the target. Usually, said psychic starts throwing around huge quantity of very general information, especially when in front of an audience, due to there being a larger probability of some of those statements or facts having a fairly decent possibility of being correct, or near enough to correct, or at the very least provoke some kind of reaction from one or more members of the audience. The psychic then observes their reactions, usually their body language, and then narrows the scope, acknowledging particular people or concepts and refining the original statements according to those reactions to promote an emotional response. Now, let's be honest. The majority of people in a room will, at some point, have lost an older relative, or known at least one person with a common name, like Mike or John, or someone who's had a parent die or has a birthday in September. This is a bigger probability of any of the statements being correct in a room full of 100 people, or even less. Then there is what is called the Forer effect, or Barnum statements. Statements made by said psychic that seem personal, but in fact could apply to almost anyone. They elicit a response from the people, as people have an eagerness to fill in details and make connections between what is said and some aspect of their own lives, often searching their entire life's history to find some connection, or reinterpreting statements in a number of different possible ways so as to make it apply to themselves. A good example of this would be, "There's some sort of fire story there," or "I sense something to do with fire." Now, think for just a moment. Think for just a second. How many people do you know in your life that have had something, anything fire related happen to them? Now, we talked about cold readings, but there is also warm reading, which is a performance tool used by professional mentalists and psychic scam artists. While hot reading is a use of foreknowledge and cold reading works on reacting to the subject's responses, warm reading refers to the strategic use of Barnum statements. Now, then there is what's called a rainbow ruse. The rainbow ruse is a crafted statement which simultaneously awards a subject a specific personality trait as well as the opposite of that trait. With such a phrase, a cold reader can, cover all possibilities and appear to have made an accurate deduction in the mind of the subject, despite the fact that the rainbow ruse statement is vague and contradictory. This technique is used since personality traits are not quantifiable, and also because nearly everybody has experienced both sides of a particular emotion at some time in their lives, due to the simple fact that people inherently are not so one-note, one-sided and singular when it comes to personality specifically. Now, let me show a brilliant example of how most psychics use the reading. I'll give you a reading right now, because if you didn't know, I'm psychic, and I'll do it based on an example reading used in several studies and explanations of how it's done. Okay, are you ready? Well, I'm getting the sense that you're the type of person who places great value on being liked and admired. At times, you can be prone to doubting whether or not you have made the right choices in your life. You can be excessively critical of yourself, but you aren't the perfect person. But for the most part, you have made up for your weaknesses. You've got a lot of potential that has not been used to your advantage yet. And you're an independent thinker. To a certain degree, you need some change in your life. Too many restrictions make you uncomfortable. That said, finding security is one of your many goals. There have been times when social anxiety has been a problem for you. Now, if that sounded like any of you, absolutely any of you, then these are the most general statements any single person could ever make about another human being. Almost anyone and any human on this planet has experienced at least some of that, and you will find it relatable, and you will actually think that I'm psychic. These tricks have been so well studied, discussed, debunked, and exposed, documented, yet people still wish to believe in it so badly that they just don't care. Now that we've gone through the concept that is called reading and discussed some of the tricks that are used by psychics, let's watch some psychics perform to an audience. Shall we? Let's do it. First up, it's the man, the myth, the legend. The man who I talked about in the beginning, the John Edwards. A fairly acclaimed psychic who's done readings for people like Kim Kardashian, or so I've heard and so it's been said. I didn't find anything that would exactly corroborate that. However, here we can see John Edwards display some of the techniques I talked about, such as using cold reading on Dr. Phil's audience.
So she's just a friend of yours, like a contemporary?
Yes.
Yes.
And is her dad passed, but her mom's alive?
No, both of her parents are alive.
No, she's with an older male that's passed, like a father.
That's your dad.
That would be my dad.
Okay. Did your dad know her?
No, but
I'm
I
so-
told him, I talked to him earlier on the other
So
side.
you had
I
your own
told
personal
him,
conversation with your dad and said,
I
do me a favor?
I did, and I
Get
told,
Dr. Phil
I told
pissed
him
at
to
John
bring our
Everett
friend
because he's supposed to read these people,
Yes.
interrupt the show.
It does serve well to mention that prior to being in the studio, the audience is asked to fill out some form of questionnaire with basic information that, without context, might not seem relevant, but psychics often use these questionnaires to assist their performance.
So is your case unsolved, like that one's not unsolved, but uncompleted or incompleted in some way?
Yes.
Okay, and I feel like I'm supposed to associate that if it's like that, and that's a wife and a husband that have passed, that there's got to be a connection, that there's a couple of people that might have passed as well. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Who's the younger female?
Now, John Edwards does an almost perfect job showcasing everything there is about cold reading in these clips of the so-called psychic reading.
There's a younger female reference that they want me to talk about. They're making a big deal about the younger female.
The baby was going to be a girl.
So they know that?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, just in case you're not convinced yet that John Edwards is a Class A douchebag, he has a website. Yes, he has a website where he offers his services with some fairly cheap prices, ranging from $100 to $850. Pretty cheap, really fine. Said services being psychic readings. And the implication is that the more you pay, the bigger your chance for contacting Aunt Edna or Daddy James. Anyhow, let's move on from John Edwards to our next psychic, the fairly well-known Laurie McQuarrie. Now, I don't think I need to explain why what this woman did and does was incredibly harmful. Laurie McQuarrie uses a form of cold reading in some of her appearances. There's also the police cases that she takes, where most of the time she makes wild assumptions, basically shotgunning, throwing random likely possibilities out there, and just throws them out there really. Just throws random stuff at the wall, hoping something sticks. Which is why I especially love this clip where she gets caught in her lies and completely exposed, to the point of, well, doing the mature thing and just walking out there in the interview on national TV.
Help solve a missing persons case. Posing as the distraught brother of a missing child, we sent our producer, Charlie McElravy, to meet with Laurie McQuarrie.
Hi, how are you? Very nice to meet you, Laurie.
We showed her a photo of this missing girl, and she agreed to take the case for $400.
But I think it's solvable.
But what Laurie didn't know was that the photo our producer gave her was actually a childhood photo of me. And obviously, I'm very much alive.
I don't believe she's alive. I'm sorry. I believe that it was a violent passing.
McQuarrie's sixth sense told her the girl was brutally murdered and sexually assaulted.
I think she was hit in the head with a rock.
But her visions didn't end there.
I think she can be brought home.
Pointing to a remote spot on this map, she even said she could help bring her body home.
Maybe even a mile or two from there.
The next day, McQuarrie sat down for an interview with me to talk about the work of psychic detectives.
I just had a gentleman in yesterday. 30 years ago, his sister disappeared.
She soon began talking about a recent case, but clearly her psychic abilities didn't tell her that I was the girl in the picture.
One of the first things I do in a case, Lisa, is I always make sure people know that if I feel the person is living or not.
So you'll always know,
Yes.
when you talk to a family member, when you start a case, you'll know if this person is dead or
Yes.
alive.
And that's the point, is that
Every time.
Yes.
But apparently her psychic abilities didn't see this coming.
Laurie, I'm going to show you something,
Okay.
okay?
Yes.
Does this girl look familiar to you?
Yes, she does. I worked this case.
This is a girl who you said was beaten and killed.
Okay.
This little girl is me. And you told somebody that she's dead.
Wait a minute.
You're taking advantage of
Okay.
desperate people with a bunch of hocus pocus, aren't you?
No, I'm not. I think we'll go. Thank you. It's been an interesting experience.
Just for the sake of getting a complete picture, let's look at a few more psychics. Next up is Teresa Caputo. Don't know if I pronounced her last name correctly, but, well, my apologies if I didn't. She's another well-known psychic who often does psychic readings and what have you. She has appeared on the Ellen Show, and then on the Ryan Seacrest radio show, giving predictions and of course giving psychic readings to the audience. Aside from doing psychic readings and being a guest in talk shows, Teresa also had her own reality TV series called Long Island Medium, a show that somehow, by some miracle, lasted 14 seasons. The premise of said show being Teresa juggling her work and family life, so basically essentially a lot of made up exaggerated drama, and a lot of TV magic. Mind you, there are quite a few interesting reviews when it comes to Teresa, so I got a few people here to read some of them for you.
I was extremely disappointed with her show. I purchased 2 front row tickets that were about $1,000 for both, and I noticed right away it was staged, and the audience she chose to talk to their past loved ones were all part of the team. It really sucks because most of us go there trying to find comfort and closure from our family members and friends who've passed away. Now, don't get me wrong, she probably might have some psychic or medium traits, but when I raised my hand about 20 times, she never picked me until I forcefully stood up, and then she told me things that had nothing to do with my father's passing or situation. I realised then she was a fraud. I tried challenging her for more information, but she was extremely nervous and just skipped me. My best friend who I attended with, her mother passed away from cancer and she was seeking comfort. Unfortunately, she left her more distraught with the misleading information she gave. I should have called American Express and gotten my money back, but that's her karma, not mine. Don't get me wrong, she might have had some psychic or medium trait.
It's just a total scam. People want to be comforted, so they believe her. She does research, but all her readings are the same. She's just leading people and doesn't know anything, just asking questions. If you have any intelligence, please wake up. She's a millionaire. A lot of psychics like her are already in jail. Read the Bible if you believe in Jesus. You will find your comfort. So far, there was nobody who can really talk to the dead. I just can't believe how people can be so blinded. She's making tons of money on the show. It's just a show. Don't be one of those naive people. She's just about money and tells you what you want to hear. No wonder why her husband left her. He must have been fed up with all those years of lies. She's possessed.
I don't think people should practice this type of activity, consulting with the dead. How do you know if it's really your relative? You don't. The enemy is so deceptive, can make you believe you're interacting with your loved one when it's not who you think it is. It's fallen angels, demons who's disguising themselves to be your family member. Don't be fooled. Watch out and be careful. According to the Holy Bible, praise the Lord, hallelujah. Demonetary 11:13. Let no one be found among you who sacrifices the son or daughter in fire, who practices divination or sorcery, interprets omens and engages in witchcraft or casts spells, or who is medium or spirits, or who consults the dead. Anyone who does fuck this voice. It's detestable to the Lord, because these same detestable practice of the Lord your God will drive you out. Those notions before you, 13, must be blasphemous before the Lord your God. Did that say blameless? I don't give a fuck about this shit. Mo's not paying me for this bullshit. Hardly even know this motherfucker. Ask me for these lines constantly just because I have a sexy voice. Well, fuck you, asshole. You ain't getting my sexy voice for those lines. You getting some creepy old bitch reading those lines. You happy now?
Hi, I'm only 14 years old. I love the Long Island Medium show. I always used to watch it with my grandma until she got very sick and forgot the channel. She just passed November 22nd, 2018 on Thanksgiving Day. I just happened to scroll past on TV and happened to see TLC and that Long Island Medium. It was still on TV, lol. I wish I could see Mrs. Teresa in person. I miss my grandmother so very much and want to know if she's still close by, and also if she forgives me for everything I've done in the past. But I have none. I wish I could have a reading with her, except I have no money at all. I've prayed to her and asked her for forgiveness, set a nice sink full of bubbles and lit a candle beside. I said, Grandma, if you're here, please blow out the candle. And instead, there was only silence. I was too late.
Long Island Medium's a horrible excuse for a human being. She's a loudmouth con artist. She takes advantage of grieving people. She takes people's money by telling them lies by hook or crook. She could care less about the people she's lying to. I don't think it's all her fault, however. It's there for the taking, so it's what she does. People need to educate themselves on phonies like Teresa Caputo. Open the Bible. See what it says about mediums. There's where you'll find your answers, your truth and your peace.
I love her show. I'm watching it right now where she's reading children. She said sometimes we see our loved ones, and I so believe that. I see my mother pass by me in a blue skirt she wore all the time, and I miss her so much. Yesterday was 9 years she passed. Had a reading one day before she got sick and passed, and was told that my grandmother, mother, and I could see things, but we just didn't tap into it. I wish I could meet her one day, but can't afford to get her to come and talk with me. But I watch her show, and I love her.
Now, just to sweeten the pot, so to speak, let's take a look at one last psychic who is also infamous, who does the same exact thing as others, but we get to witness what happened and what happens when cold reading fails, and no one has been paid to go along with the act, and there is no prior prep to the show. This is worth seeing. Let's take a look. So, presenting to you all, Sally Morgan. She attended a simple interview that led to her being put on the spot to do a reading, to use her psychic powers. Alas, she fails completely and utterly. But at that point, she has gone so far in that she pushes further and further to try to salvage the situation, even a little bit. Take a look.
Christine, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, hello,
Hi,
Christine.
hello.
I'm Sally. I
Hello,
just,
Sally.
you're a lovely boy here, and I knew that because you said your mum's name was Christine.
Did I say that
Yeah,
earlier?
did,
Have you
did say
researched
that.
me on the way
No,
here?
Oh, please. I mean, what are you going to do with it,
Did I
Christine?
definitely say Christine on the radio?
I think what it is, Christine, I certainly didn't research him. What I want to say to you, I've got better things to do with my day. What I wanted to know, Christine, I saw a young boy here connected to Richard, and also August the 3rd, and it's really coming through you because of you. So we wanted to know if there was a young boy that passed in the family on your side or on your father's side.
No.
Right.
No, there isn't. I mean, the only my grandmother couldn't carry boys and lost 2 boys, but they didn't make it. You know, they were born.
And do you know,
one was miscarried and one born dead. But I mean, I obviously never met them. But apart from that, there I can't think of any boy or child that has ever been lost in our family.
No, okay, the one that was born, that's stillborn. What about the August the 3rd? Does that have a meaning? Is that connected to that grandmother? I mean, it's a big thing, a big ask, Christine, because you haven't even been thinking of that.
No, August the 3rd doesn't ring a bell
you know,
with me
and
at all.
you know, this isn't. Sometimes you do have to think about it. It's like we've just chucked this straight at you, Christine. But Richard, it's really coming through you. And there was a very strong sense also of your father as well here.
Oh, really?
And as I
right,
talk to you, I get a real sense of your dad, Christine.
Yeah.
But,
oh, dear, yes. Well, he was a very strong character.
Yeah.
What does that mean? That's it. Now, Sally. Let's pause a second.
Okay.
I mean, to be fair, you've had a try, and that's fair enough.
Yeah.
But there is no boy in our family that died young, and August the 3rd means nothing to my mother. And now you're talking about my mum's dad, but you're speaking about him in very vague terms. I mean, when you say there's a sense of him...
You see, to me, when I talk about someone that has passed, it is never vague. I get I can't...
Well, tell us something about my granddad, then.
It's only... I mean, if I spoke to you tomorrow, Christine, I might not pick that up. So it's very much now, and I don't know whether your mum's been recently thinking of her father.
Tell us a bit, what did he do for a living?
I don't pick that up, what he did for a living. I don't pick that up. I just get a sense of your...
How did he die?
Well, the only thing I get with your mum's dad, it's right on the something on the side of my head. That's the only thing that I get. And it really is the left-hand side of my. It's like someone's just. I want to sort of hold the left-hand side of my head, but I don't understand that either.
Okay, Mum, does that mean anything to you?
What side of her head?
Yeah.
No.
Mum, he died of alcohol poisoning, didn't he?
He did. Yeah. Yes, he died of alcoholism.
Okay. Well, listen, so to be fair, Sally, we've put you on the spot. You hadn't come here to do, to do a reading today.
But that, my whole life is being put on the spot, Richard. My whole life is being put on the spot.
Love to see it. She tried so desperately to cover for herself, so very desperately, to prove that she truly has supernatural powers. But instead, the more she tried and pushed, the more she proved the opposite. Unfortunately, despite having been exposed and proven to be a simple scam artist, she still has fans, believers, and people who continue to pay for her services. Talking about prosperity preachers, televangelists, and psychics in the same sentence, the same context, might seem a bit odd at first, but let's take a closer look. Let's dissect it. Prosperity preachers believe they should be given money for their faith prosperity teachings. Televangelists are essentially TV priests who encourage donations for some kind of spiritual reward. And usually televangelists and prosperity preachers are pretty much branches of the same tree. Now, maybe you might think that psychics don't fit in, but then you remember that psychics love appearing on TV and ask the population, the audience, to pay for special supernatural services. And often, all three have some sort of website that offers some extra services for copious amounts of money. And all three are essentially performers, scam artists, and TV personalities. On the surface level, they all have one very special thing in common. They very much love money. You see, it's actually kind of amusing how very not subtle they are about the fact that they love money and fame, but people still think that they're doing stuff out of the goodness of their own heart. All of us charging anywhere from $100 to thousands of dollars. There's always been performers, and a good performance should get paid, but these people are pretending that the performance is real and people suck it up. So let's talk about how people sucking it up can affect their lives and actually hurt their livelihoods and people in general. Throughout the ages, there have been multiple cases of grieving and desperate people going to psychics for some form of closure, and oftentimes in that situation, these psychics end up charging copious amounts of money. And these people are desperate, so they give any and all of their wealth just to have a chance at talking with their loved ones, which often leads to people acquiring a considerable amount of debt or simply going bankrupt due to the waste of money. There's also the psychological aspect to the entire situation. The clients are grieving and desperate. They go to psychics or fortune tellers or mediums or whatever else, and oftentimes these people are told what they want to hear or believe, but that could very easily create a false sense of hope, belief, faith, so on and so forth. So when people are desperate, they will go to almost any extent, and that's what these psychics prey on. Moreover, some psychics just inherently use their wealth, platform, and what have you for malicious purposes. The majority of the time, psychics, mediums, and so on are simply scam artists that want your money. That's why for quite some time, there have been people, individuals, who have placed considerable effort into disproving the supernatural, specifically psychics and mediums, and anyone else who claims to possess supernatural abilities. One such person is James Randi, someone I greatly admire and respect. And as he just recently passed away, I want to take a moment just to talk about the man and his work. James Randi was a Canadian-American stage magician and scientific skeptic who essentially challenged paranormal and pseudoscientific claims. He co-founded the Committee for Skeptical Inquiry and then founded the James Randi Educational Foundation. Most of his life, he spent challenging the claims made by psychics and pseudoscientific claims, but he only truly rose to popularity when he took on Uri Geller and proved him to be the sham artist that he is. Thereafter, he continued exposing and disproving scam artists, at some point coming across Peter Popoff, a fairly infamous faith healer who scammed millions out of people by using and abusing the very concept of faith, which turned out that he was just getting sent information from his wife who had questionnaires and other information from the audience that he just relayed onto Peter. And furthermore, James Randi dedicated his life to disproving healers who do not heal, seers who do not see, and psychics who prey on the desperate. James Randi was one of the coolest people to exist, and it's a genuine shame that he's now passed away. The world could always do with a healthy dose of skepticism, and it's been made quite clear what happens when people just believe everything. A good, healthy dose of skepticism is fine. That's the only way things actually progress, if you challenge and question things. It's fine to question and ask things and seek out knowledge. But now I'm gonna do a 180. Flip the entire table around them. I'll play a version of Devil's Advocate. Let's talk about the good aspect of psychics. Now, as you might have gathered by now, I have a very high opinion of psychics and nothing but the utmost respect for them. So now let's talk about the positive influence that psychics, mediums and others of the ilk could possibly have. Well, you'd be surprised to know, but some psychics don't even charge for meeting with them. They don't charge for sessions. Or if they do, they only charge for anything extra. But most of the time, they attempt to lift people up in a way similar to what motivational speakers do. Some psychics, fortune tellers and mediums are careful about what they say and do, with the objective being to help people. It sounds too good to be true, but it does happen. And moreover, some psychics are very open about the fact that it's all a performance, similar to mentalists, which at that point it's just entertainment, or for some people it could help them come to terms with things, or get closure, or move on. A good example of a seer being simply entertaining is Miss Cleo, who also recently passed away, unfortunately. But you see, back in the 90s and early 2000s, she had several commercials on TV, which for the most part were quite easy to figure out how they were done, and from what I could find online, no one really took it seriously, par of minority, but instead it's something entertaining to watch. As she was incredibly entertaining and had a sweet lady vibe going for her. Miss Cleo was genuinely an interesting person and one of the more interesting seers of the time. Of course, I can't necessarily say that she was the best person alive, as she still did charge people to call in to have their fortunes told or readings done or whatever else. But to be fair, a large quantity of that was mandated by the company that she was employed by back then, which then puts the blame on the company instead of her. Though she did still agree to it, so there's a debate to be had there. There is also an interesting interview with Miss Cleo on YouTube, one of the few interviews done just prior to her death. I'll link it down below in the description if anyone is interested, and I'll leave it in the pinned comment as well. Overall, I think that if you're gonna have psychics, then Miss Cleo was a good role model for that regard. She was just entertaining, and people enjoyed the entertainment value of it all. The exaggerated accent and everything. Now, you might have noticed that I don't have many examples of group psychics, mediums, and fortune tellers, and there is a very good reason for this. You see, they're not the people going on TV. They're not the mainstream people. They don't offer $1,000 services to anyone. They're just small stores in a corner somewhere of a small street. And it's hard to find those kinds of people online, and it's hard to do research when they're relatively unknown. So I was limited to people like Miss Cleo, who was a fairly mainstream seer, but one of the better ones. Now, psychics, mediums, they're all about the same. Scam artists that just prey on people who want to believe, or simply the incredibly desperate. Psychics, much like anything else in the world, can be good or bad. as I have hopefully demonstrated with my examples, they can help people in ways, or simply scam people out of their money by preying on the gullible and the desperate. But what do you think about psychics? Let me know down below in the comments. I am interested in hearing everyone's thoughts, and I do think that this is a discussion that should be had, or at least would be interesting to have. And now there we are. Here we are at the end. It's the bloody end. I want to thank you fine people for giving me some of your very valuable time and watching this video. It's the first time I've done anything of this size, length and complexity. It genuinely took me months to figure out how to do this video, write it, and well, just do it in general. But here it is, at long last. But before we truly end, I do want to thank my absolutely lovely, brilliant patrons, Rosara, Mystery DJ, Garking, and Fananine. With all that done, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like, let me know if you want more videos like this. If you want to see more content from me, subscribe and do hit the bell button. Because without hitting the bell button, it's almost like you didn't subscribe at all. And if you want to keep in touch with all the things I'm up to, what I'm doing, then follow me on Twitter at Molegul. It will again be in the description and possibly in the pinned comment. And massive and huge thanks to Racy for editing this video. His socials and stuff will also be in the description and possibly in the pinned comment. Thank you everyone for watching, and I'll hopefully see you again next time in 7 months. Now, before we properly end, there's a few more people I have to thank properly. Since a lot has happened since my Chris Hansen video and my Angry Video Game Nerd video, and I didn't really specifically talk about any of it. So I'm gonna use this chance to talk about it. Baked Salmon shouted me out after my Chris Hansen video. Massive thanks, I appreciate it a lot, man. Absolutely, thank you so much. Cynical Reviews shouted out my Angry Video Game Nerd video and also cameoed in it, which again, massive thanks for that. And of course, everyone that agreed to cameo in this video, reading reviews, thank you so much. Thank you for agreeing to all of this. Thank you for, again, taking the leap with some of my absolutely insane ideas. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you. I genuinely appreciate it. And I want to thank you all, everyone who's watching this video, liking, commenting, subscribing. Thank you for the massive amount of support. I know that I'm the least consistent YouTuber on the bloody planet, and my upload schedule is beyond obscene, but I am genuinely really appreciative of all of the support. I never expected to even get close to 1,000 subscribers, but recently I've been gaining subscribers every day, every week, and it's actually seeming that it's actually becoming likely that I'm going to actually get 1,000 subscribers, and I am very thankful for it. Thank you.